We understand she met with the final four contenders, Kamala did, and had at least some suggestion made to her by her staff, or at least they were edging closer to it. And you have been closer to this reporting than anybody. So what can you tell us?
Megyn, good to be back. Look, picking a running mate is a fraught situation for anybody, but consider the circumstances under which this person, who is historically not a great decision maker and particularly not a great decision maker under pressure, is making the decision. Number one, the economy around the world now is in peril. Number two, Iran could strike Israel today. Those are substantive issues that as vice president, she's got to be at least somewhat involved in. But obviously the political implications of those could be huge. Next, she's doing all this on an accelerated timeline. The process is filled with landmines because they're vetting these people quickly. And lastly, she's doing it on a weekend when something extremely personal was exposed about her husband. And when top Democrats tell me that the big story here is not will they get the vetting right on the vice president, but have they sufficiently vetted their accidental presidential nominee? People make the mistake all the time of saying, you've been governor of Texas, you've been governor of Arkansas, you've been vice president. Of course you've been vetted. Of course your background is clean now. Everything that's going to come out will come out. It's just not the case. And we've seen examples of this with George W. Bush when he ran for president, Bill Clinton when he ran for president. And there's concern that no one's looked enough into her background to say, with 90 days to go, could one disclosure that wouldn't hurt Donald Trump, because Donald Trump and Bill Clinton play by different rules, would one disclosure threaten to have an endgame surprise that could cost them the White House?
Whoa, that's significant. So there could be something on Kamala Harris that would be problematic to her campaign. Forget the VP for a second.
Well, so it could be problematic because the public would say, we don't like that. But that's less likely. Look at what happened this weekend, right? Is it kind of crazy that the first gentleman, who's one of the most visible vice presidential spouses in American history, this story never came out until now, right? That's kind of weird. What prompted it to come out? So are we saying that nothing else that the vice president or her husband ever did, which didn't come out before, might come out now? That defies history. It defies what just happened this weekend. She's not a great decision maker. Bill Clinton and Donald Trump, both before they were president and after they were elected, shamelessly survive things that no mortal politician could. They have no shame. They're brilliant at fighting back. The press treats them differently. You could take the exact same hypothetical story about Donald Trump disclosure. He, stole $1 million from a library and put that on Kamala Harris. It wouldn't be covered the same way because Trump has done everything, right? Trump has already been accused of everything. It's priced into the stock. She's not very well known, despite being vice president. And she's in danger of more disclosure. And again, she's not great under pressure historically. And she's not the kind of person who's lived her life in a fishbowl the way Donald Trump has well before he ran for office. She's really a relatively
just to make clear, Mark,
person.
So because they're vetting her at the same time as they're vetting the VP nominees, not because they want anything, but because they know the Republicans are doing the same thing.
I don't know. I hear mixed things about whether they're doing it. What I hear concern is, hey, we're vetting all these people to put on the ticket, right? But that's not necessarily what could bring the ticket down. What could bring the ticket down is insufficient vetting of the top of the ticket rather than insufficient vetting of the running mate. Because again, as is evidenced by the fact that Kamala Harris was a candidate for vice president. They say, I don't have confirmation of this, and I don't really like when reporters just take it as truth. They say, the campaign does, that this was disclosed to the Biden campaign in 2000 as part of her vetting. Wasn't publicly disclosed, but that they disclosed it to the campaign. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But this was not something that was pushed into the public realm when she ran for vice president, right? This could have been a story 4 years ago. It had happened already, and yet it wasn't. And so what some people are saying is, do we need to make sure because remember, she didn't run for the nomination. Often stuff gets pushed out in the competitive party fight for the nomination. That's where we learned about Bill Clinton, for instance, dodging the draft, and about Jennifer Flowers. That happened in the context of a competitive Democratic primary where the press and the opponents of that person look into it, whether they're Republicans or Democrats. She didn't have that. She became the nominee in about 12 hours. No primaries, no caucuses, no competitive process. That means that even though she was vice president and vetted for that, even though she ran for vice president, we're dealing with a different standard here. And when people say to me, as some have, well, that's hypothetical. It's not. It happened this weekend. We learned something pretty big this weekend that we never knew before.
I mean, it is pretty big, and I mentioned this in the intro. I'm generally of the view at this point in life, like, this is 2 marriages removed for the guy. He gets along with the ex-wife. Whatever happened between them, it's been forgiven. Okay, that's human frailty and a very bad decision on his part. However, this is the thing. He's out there constantly playing the charming, loving husband, the guy that all women could respect and would want to spend time with, not a threat at all to anybody else's marriage. And really the judger of all men. He understands toxic masculinity. And of course, the presumption is in a way that Trump and MAGA do not. They're hashtag part of the problem. Let me just play the soundbite and then I'll get your reaction. It's hot one.
Talk about masculinity for a moment. Has being second gentleman changed your own view of perceived gender roles or what it means to be a man?
This is something I've thought about a lot and something I've spoken about a lot. There's too much of toxicity, masculine toxicity out there. And we've kind of confused what it means to be a man, what it means to be masculine, where you've got this trope out there that you've got to be tough and, angry and lash out to be strong. It's just the opposite. Strength is how you show your love for people.
Okay. This is so annoying. So is it toxically masculine to F around on your wife with your child's nanny, to get the nanny pregnant, and then to have either an abortion with this woman or to abandon the child entirely? Is that toxically masculine? Or is it worse to send out a mean tweet asking for a friend? Let me know, second gentleman. Go ahead, Mark.
Right. So first of all, I'm not sure we know for sure that the woman got pregnant. I don't think that's established and wasn't acknowledged.
I think it is. Really? I mean, the Daily Mail has got a lot on here.
It's
a lot.
They do. It's even
and he
in the
didn't
Daily
deny
Mail
it.
story. Well, he didn't deny it, but he didn't acknowledge it. And even the Daily Mail story is a little ambiguous. But leaving that aside, I agree with your first 2 points, and I want to make a third. I agree with you. Happened a while ago. Personal life, presumption of grace. He's not the candidate. I agree with all that. I also agree with your point that he is way out there on issues related to this, and he should sit for an interview and explain himself and talk about how he reconciles his public statements like the one you just showed with his own conduct. The other point, though, and I think for just the analysis of where this race is, remember, the vice president now is dealing with lots of things. She's dealing with Israel. She's dealing with Iran. She's dealing with the economy. She's dealing with picking a running mate. She's dealing with the convention planning. There's a lot going on in her life. Imagine the personal turmoil this weekend. And if I'm right that people are concerned about other potential things, it's not just how's my husband being covered? How am I being covered? That's for most Americans, what she went through this weekend just on this story would be the most pressure-filled, traumatic moment of their life. Every news organization in the country more or less covering this to some extent. She's not impervious to that. She couldn't be. She wouldn't be human if she is. And so that to me is if you're talking about the election and who's going to win, rather than making a judgment about him, which I told you I agree with you on your 2 points, that to me is a pretty big deal because that's a lot of pressure. And historically, I've said it several times, I think it's important. She's not been great making decisions under pressure.
If you're tired of the same old coffee from those mega corporations pushing their woke agendas, listen up. It's time to take a stand and support a brand that embodies American values. At Blackout Coffee, they stand with hardworking Americans who believe in family, faith, and freedom. They roast some of the most incredible coffee you will ever taste using only premium grade beans. And guess what? They roast and ship within 48 hours to ensure you get the freshest coffee possible. I love this because I'm not into grinding my own beans. That's a pain in the butt. It adds another step to the process and I'm already tired. So to know that I'm getting the freshest coffee, it was ground within 48 hours of me drinking it, that's big. You could start your day with a bold cup of Blackout coffee. Plus, it's not just coffee. It's a statement. Why settle for less? Make the switch to Blackout Coffee today by heading on over to the blackoutcoffee.com/MK site, or just use the code MK for 20% off your first order. blackoutcoffee.com/MK, and the code is MK. Join the movement. Taste the difference. Remember, with every sip, you are supporting a brand that stands for America. Be awake, not woke. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.